taking three.
Going for the St. Louis now.
Oh no!
Son of a bitch.
You get your two?
Yeah. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course. Today we're going to take a look at our second episode in the series of learning from our mistakes. So, what we're going to take a look at in this battle, it's on Trap, right? And Trap is usually one of those maps where everyone sort of has this set place where they want to go, and typically it's down there by A, right? Down there in the southwest part of the map. That's normally where everyone wants to go, and that's where I'm going to go in this battle as well, because I figured that majority of my ships would go there, my ally ships, and that the enemy ships would go there, we'd meet, battle it out, and that would determine the fate of the map. And that's exactly what happens. Now, why we're taking a look at this battle is because just to throw out the idea there that you don't always have to go down here to A, right? Once we start spotting the enemy ships, we'll see how they deployed, and it's really going to make it a lot clearer as to why this whole strategy of going down here to A, like basically all the ships going down here to A, is not a good strategy at all. Now, another thing that happens here that is fairly tragic is that the team does kind of split off, right? Some of the ships, the majority of the ships are going to go to A and focus A, but some of the ships, specifically a destroyer, we can see the destroyer over there, we can see one of the cruisers, and there's another cruiser. So a destroyer and two cruisers are going to go and try and take B. This is bad. The destroyer, if the destroyer would have went alone, that's fine, right? That's no big deal. But we have two cruisers who are intent on taking B as well, and it just isn't going to happen in a cruiser this early in the game. You know that those guys are going to die, or they're either going to get pushed out of the point right back to where we spawned, or maybe they're going to retreat up to C. So, another sort of thing to take into consideration here, if you're in this position on this map and you're thinking, well, everyone's going A, I'm going to go support that destroyer at B, it's probably not a great idea. The better idea is probably to focus C and B and just leave A for the enemies, right? Make your stand at B. Anyway, we can start seeing some enemies pop up, right? We see that at least one cruiser is heading down to A. More importantly, we can see enemy aircraft, right? So we do have some enemy aircraft carriers to deal with, two of them, and those planes are spotting all of the ships, the destroyer and the two cruisers who went to B. So the enemies are now engaging those guys, and it's not going to go too well for those people. In the meantime, down here in the south, we are continuing along to A, and you can see a lot of the enemy ships did come down here at A. The advantage to the enemy here, though, is that some of those enemy ships that aren't exactly at A yet, especially the battleships, are able to fire in on my cruisers who are trying to hold B, right? We still have my allied destroyer up there. He's, hiding in smoke, but there is the allied cruiser up there who's coming under heavy air attack, right? And there's not a whole lot we can do for that guy. He's going to go down, and it's fairly tragic. We start coming around this island down here in the southwest and start engaging some of these enemies, right? Now, I wasn't going to push forward into this point and try and cap it. You can see that I have a cruiser forward of me who's attempting to do that, and that cruiser is dying. An enemy cruiser, we just saw in a Thotgor there, attempted to do, block the cap and essentially take the point. Wasn't able to do it. Our battleships are right there. It was able to take him out fairly easily. So this is another thing that you want to keep in mind as well. I've talked about it before, but we can really see it here. Cruisers really can't take points on their own like this. Now, what I should have done, because you can see I'm circling back right now, but the plan right now was to circle around and come in behind my battleships. I wanted my battleships to go forward. I'd circle in behind them, and we'd take the point, or at least that was the plan, right? Because if you notice, the enemies only have one destroyer, so it's a good situation here to have the battleships go forward ahead of your cruisers to take some of at least the major blows as soon as you come around breaking cover, right? To take some of those major blows to help absorb some of the damage to keep allied ships alive. But not going to actually work out here. So I'm kind of moving away now, right? You can see I'm beginning my circle back in towards the allied battleships I have. I've got a Tirpitz with me and another battleship as well. So thinking it's pretty great. Up there at B, we did lose both those cruisers up there. We did lose one of the cruisers up there, so that's not really a surprise. The destroyer is still going strong, but now the destroyer has to contend with an enemy cruiser, because you'll notice that the enemies were smart enough to actually send some ships up there to C and cap that point. Especially on trap, right? Not many people actually go to C, and usually I find on trap that C is really the critical point, because if you can cap C early, then you can start fighting it out over B and A. Right now, the enemies have capped C early. The majority of my team is down here at A. We aren't able to get up there to C. You can see the ships that we do have that might be able to get up there. We've got one cruiser. There's another cruiser, just south of B, and then there's the destroyer in B as well. So those ships aren't really going to be able to do a whole lot, especially considering they're already being engaged right now. Like my friendly destroyer isn't going to be lasting too much longer here. You can see that enemy aircraft are moving in. Down here at A, we actually didn't even go into the point, right? Kind of got maybe afraid. I know for myself, I started second guessing this, right? I was looking at the minimap saying, well, we haven't taken A yet, the enemy's capping A now, I may as well push forward and take and take B, at least help and defend B, and then go and take C. That is my plan. This was a mistake. If we committed to taking A and B, and we don't have A, B is being contested, we need to do something all together as a team. You need to push somewhere and take something, and in this situation I think it would have been best for us, my team, to stay and take A, right? We can see we still do have a battleship down there attempting to take A, but the rest of the ships, myself included, decided to turn back and go towards B. B is no longer contested, so that's kind of fueling the whole thing of, yeah, we're making the right decision. Really not, because by leaving A all to the enemy and just that one friendly battleship down there, the enemies are going to take out that friendly battleship, and we need that battleship. So it didn't really work out too well for us here at all. Even though at this point in time I'm thinking, well, it's not too bad if we look at the points. Points are still fairly close, right? So it's still anyone's game at this point in time, at least is what I'm thinking. But if we take a look at the mini-map here and how the battle is progressing, we can see that things aren't going well. The enemies still have a really high concentration of ships down there at A. Now that A is under enemy control, while it's being contested, our Tirpitz is still down there attempting to cap it, but that's not going to last. The enemies, the majority of the enemy ships anyway, are now able to chase us into B. So suddenly our whole move towards B that I made with the friendly battleship on the port side here, we've got some cruisers, another battleship in B, this whole push is kind of negated right now because we don't have the same number of ships in as relatively good position as the enemies are to be able to engage these ships in any sort of meaningful fashion, right? And even behind B, you can see enemy ships back there, right? We saw the aircraft carrier go by, so that aircraft carrier is obviously going to start harassing us as much as possible in this B point. In the meantime, the enemies still do have C. They actually have a ship up there at C still as well. So while we're trying to defend B against the enemy push from A, the enemies are able to shoot at us from behind at C, right? This effectively splits our fire because most of the ships here aren't going to take kindly to being shot from the rear and are going to start shooting at the enemy ships and the rear that are attacking them, leaving the enemy ships coming from A to also attack, right? So it's really didn't work out very well here for us at all. And you can see now as well, like I was talking about, the enemy aircraft carrier coming in here, harassing us, right? And up until this point I didn't actually take any damage. It's not until now that I start receiving damage from the enemy aircraft carrier and I start sort of realizing what's happening. And take a look at my allied ships too, right? The ones that are behind the cover, just behind this island that's in front of me, these guys aren't really able to do anything, and right now B is just so important. My allied Tirpitz down there at A has managed to survive. He's still down there, still putting pressure on A, but it's pointless at this time, right? We don't have A. We don't have any ships down there to take A. The only way we could salvage this is if my allies continue a really strong push towards C and take C, and we have to hold B as well, which is going to be a struggle. And while all of this is going on, you can see on the mini-map there's an enemy destroyer pushing to the south, and he's found our aircraft carriers, right? So things have gone from bad to worse here. We're about to lose the air cover that we have. My allied ships who are pushing towards C are kind of second guessing themselves now, and one of them has been taken out by the enemy destroyer. The Tirpitz that was down there at A is gone. He's gone, so it's basically just a few of my allies remaining here in B with myself, and we can see some of them, the cruiser and battleship down there, still trying, well, they were advancing towards C, but are now sort of dealing with the destroyer, right? So everything is completely falling apart here. And it's totally because we just were too indecisive, right? We went for where we assumed would be the best place to go, which would have been A. But even though we did that, members of our team didn't follow suit, right? We split up. And the people who went to B, sure, we still do have B, and I mean, they managed to take it. The ones, myself included, down there at A didn't actually hold on and fight it out to take A. Instead, we retreated because it looked like B was going to be lost. It's this indecisiveness that has led us to where we are now, right? I'm in here still in B, still with my battleship, still trying to do whatever we can. We do have enemy cruisers off in the distance, and granted I'm in a hipper and it does some really good damage. There's only so much I can do, right? There's aircraft carrier torpedo bombers are in here. They just attacked my North Carolina, my battleship. I've got to dodge some torpedoes. I am able to dodge the torpedoes, but it puts me at a position and start presenting broadsides to these enemies over here. Right, so everything is just sort of going downhill at this time. You can see as well that the cap points, there's a pretty big lead here now as well. I mean, granted, it's not necessarily so much so that we're going to definitely lose. We could potentially turn this around, but it's just not going to happen. We don't have the grouping of our allied ships. We're not concentrating fire to be able to actually take victory out of this. Not a whole lot we can do, right? Well, at this point, not a whole lot we can do, right? There was a lot we could have done at the beginning, a whole lot, just by staying together and focusing on like maybe one point, sending one destroyer off to take the second point, and then staying adamant with the point that you were originally attacking. Things might have gone a whole lot differently for us here in this battle. It just wasn't meant to be. You saw it at the beginning what happened, right? The majority of our ships, yeah, sure, we did go to A, but then some split off and went to B. They took B. The enemy put a lot of pressure on A, myself included. The ships down at A second guessed ourselves, I guess, got frightened off, whatever you want to call it, and decided to push back to B and secure B. That's all fine and good, and it would have or could have worked out. Like, we would have had a better chance. But then we saw, right, that destroyer that moved down to the south to attack our aircraft carriers, who, by the way, are still alive. But the destroyer who went down there to attack the aircraft carriers sort of provided a distraction for my allied ships who were moving into C, and those allied ships then started to engage the destroyer. And it's only now that those allied ships are starting to cap the C point, right? We can see them moving in there, and in fact I'm moving into C now as well, because B is lost, right? I just can't stay in B anymore and try to defend it. I'm going to die if I continue to do that, and I won't be able to contribute anything more to the team. So I've basically just retreated out of B. We're now moving into C. This isn't going to change anything though, right? The enemies are still gaining points because, they still have an uncontested cap. We're only back gaining points now, but again, it still doesn't matter. There's just too much going on for my ally ships. It's only now, too, that we've really grouped up into an effective force, but it's only because there's a few of us remaining, right? And you could even say that the few that are remaining, these are the people who are either lucky or, like myself, we're trying to group up with other ships, right, just to push back somewhere, but it never actually happened. It's just not going to happen. But the value in all of this, the value, of course, in seeing this is actually seeing it, right? Seeing how these sort of situations unfold, understanding and being able to recognize these situations, and then potentially turning it around, victory for you. Now, there are always going to be those battles where either you're just not playing very well for whatever reason, or your allied team is not playing very well, or both, right? There are always going to be those instances, and those aren't the instances that this series addresses, right? This series is simply those battles that you thought everything was going fine, I thought we were going to win this, and then suddenly, no, we don't do it. And we saw that here, right? I mean, we do now have the C point, that's fine, great, but there's nothing we can do at this point. Even now, our fire is split, right? We're not focusing fire. You can see I'm off shooting at this cruiser. I do have another allied ship shooting at the cruiser with me, but we have a battleship who's pushing into B, trying to take B. We should really be supporting the battleship at B, right? Not necessarily concerned about these guys over here, but for whatever reason, that's the targets that I decide to shoot at. And you can see as well, I mean, my battleship here off to the starboard side now, shooting at the same targets that I am as well. So, I mean, we just didn't know, or we just didn't see the situation unfold and react accordingly. Even though we're now taking the B point, sure, we're taking the B point, but too little, too late, right? We can cap the B point, but the point lead is just so much now that we're not going to be able to pull this off unless we start focusing fire immediately, right? We need to take the B point, we need to kill these two cruisers right away just to gain ourselves a little extra time, and then maybe we might be able to take out another enemy ship and call victory, but that is not going to happen. Our fire is split again. We're dispersed, right? We've got myself in this battleship over here. We've got another allied ship in B all by himself. We've got another allied ship moving over to the west side all by himself. So we're not positioned at all to turn this around. And that's something you really want to keep in mind in these type of battles. Positioning, right? It's so important, not especially for battleships, but you know, and for the team as a whole. So the battle is over and we have lost, obviously. What do you take from this? Well, the first thing, obviously, we talked about at the beginning, right? We all went for that A point. We should have stuck for that A point. Those cruisers who split off with the destroyer to go to B, terrible move. Those cruisers were then written off, and then eventually, you know, my team just got so dispersed, myself included, we were no longer focusing fire and we're being chased by the enemy from point to point, right? Anyway, that is today's video. Hopefully you guys are able to learn something from this, right? Learn from our mistakes. Hopefully as well you're enjoying the contest, so keep in mind that's running until February 28th, I think is what I said. Yes. So as always, leave any comments you have for me in the video comment section below. Love reading those, responding back to them. Hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Hit subscribe if you were not a subscriber. And as always, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.